Hello and welcome to Turkish Film's Daily Chess Analysis, Episode 12. Today, we are going into the game that I played earlier today. It was, you guessed it, a ready opening. And I haven't played a lot against this opening. I used to play it like when I first started. After playing e4 and being like, I don't really want to play against the Sicilian. And then I started playing the London, and that seemed kind of okay. But I didn't like certain lines that I played now against the London. Then I tried knight f3 because I thought it was flexible and kind of nice to kind of make them decide what they want to do. But stopped playing that in favor of other openings. So now, facing the ready, I don't have a strong repertoire against it. It's a very strong transposition tool. And I played d5. Just kind of the normal response. And after d4, I played knight f6. And the idea behind knight f6, at least from my perspective, is when people play d4 normally, I then play knight f6 and try to steer the game into Indian territory stuff and try to kind of put off d5 until it's exactly when I want to play it. So that he's kind of tricked me into playing d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6. I'm trying to kind of force the game back into territory I'm familiar with. And if he had played d4 and I had played knight f6 and he had played knight f3, well, now I know that he's not being very ambitious, and so d5 is a move that I would play. So now I'm sort of comfortable back in this thing, and then he throws it all off by playing knight c3. This is a Chigorin variation of the queen's pawn. And Chigorin, even from black's perspective, you'll see that sometimes black will do this. That's also called the Chigorin. Chigorin liked his knights, apparently, because he's always blocking the c-pawns with his knights. And so I spent a little bit of time here thinking about what the goals are and what the differences between the c-pawn being in front of the knight and the c-pawn being behind the knight are. And I was trying to figure out, where I was going to put my pieces exactly. And I settled upon e6. And e6 is a move that leaves the book, actually. I'm sure people have looked at this position, but for the computer, and for most people, g6 is the move they play to fianchetto their bishop. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because there's this pawn here. He hasn't played e4 yet. You put your knight in front of this pawn, so there's going to be a little bit of difficulty there with having your pawns doubled. But I just went with e6. And my idea was to play c5 and to break there and to kind of chip in from the side. Since he hasn't moved his c-pawn, I'm going to move my c-pawn and show him why it's a bad idea to put your knights in front of your c-pawn. So he played a3, which this has been a thing I've seen in a lot of the games. We've seen in a lot of the games that I've played. Them playing a3, h3, h6, or a6 in order to stop my bishop from going here, pinning their knight. And I think it's kind of important to know when this is a good idea, when it's not a good idea. I was actually just explaining why these moves are played at all, right? And so the first one I just mentioned is to stop a piece going here, often to pin the knight to the king or to check the king. That can be a good idea, it cannot be a good idea, but the idea behind this is you're protecting this knight. If you like this knight a lot, if he's your favorite guy, then you're going to want to defend him, because if you don't, then I can take this guy by force, right? If you didn't play that move, I could, by force, take this knight. So you're preserving this knight. That's true. The second idea behind these small pawn moves is to launch this, b4. Not often do you see g4, but sometimes. And sometimes you see g5 after h6. And the one idea here is you're, one, gaining queenside space, but two, you're getting kind of an improved fianchetto, right? Because the normal fianchetto is just with b3, and you introduce a lot of the light score weaknesses. But when you play a3 and b4, the knight can cover some of those, and you're still locking out anybody that could come in to affect those light squares, and your bishop gets to a really nice square. So those are the main ideas when you're playing these small pawn moves. And so when you're going to play one of these, ask yourself, do I really want to, start mobilizing these pawns? Do I want to fianchetto my bishop this side? Is this knight that important? And so in the game, you can hear me say, after he plays a3, should I play h6 now, right? Stopping his bishop from pinning my knight to the queen. Because I get pretty uncomfortable when my knight's pinned to my queen. I don't know about you. But here I decided against it. And the reason is, what is this knight doing right now? Its job was to defend the d5 pawn. But after playing e6, this knight is kind of relaxed. He doesn't have this job anymore. He is looking at the e4 square, but so is the pawn. he's looking at the g4 square, but that doesn't seem so relevant right now because I'm not attacking h2, and f2 is too far for me to reach. So this knight is good, it developed, right? I can get closer to castling, but I don't have a strong desire to protect this knight. If he wants to forcibly come in and do this, and I take back, I'm totally cool with that, because now I have the 2 bishops. So I decided against h6 and instead played c5. I went along with my plan. If he takes, I take with the bishop, developing. He played e3, defending the pawn, and then I played knight c6. So you can see it's almost like I'm playing like white, because white would play d4, after d5, play c4, and then after some move, play knight to c3. He put his knight in front of the pawn, I put my knight behind the pawn. So we'll see kind of who comes out in this exchange and how useful the c-pawn is down the line. He captured the pawn, and I took back with my bishop. Yay, I got my bishop developed and I'm ready to castle. This is a great move to make. After bishop d3, I started to notice that these 2 pieces here can be forked if a pawn lands there. So now e5, which is not only space gaining, also comes with a threat. So I played e5, and this is just kind of a funny thing that I was reminded of recently. The theoretical best opening position you get is something like this, with the bishops out, the knight's out, I think the queen goes here, and you castle. And the reason why it's so good is because you have massive control over the center, you develop your pieces to the center to very active squares, and you're ready to castle either side. So it's funny that I'm so close to that position even though I'm black. And here he played bishop b5, which actually kind of surprised me, because if you notice what his bishop did a weird kind of stutter step. It stopped at d3 and then went on to b5. So you get this kind of time waste, which to me, since he was playing quickly and he was a little bit higher rated than me, I thought this may be his theory, and that e5 is, though it looks like a very attractive move, really isn't. And so I was like, kind of, shoot, I feel like I've been tricked. I can't move my pawn back to e6 where I want it to go. And in evaluating this position, I saw that if he takes here, I lose this pawn. So maybe it would have made sense to play a6, right? a6 stops this knight from being attacked, which means that this pawn is always defended. Here I played the wrong move. So the correct move is bishop d6. And I thought about that move, but said, no, I can't play bishop d6 because this pawn's hanging. There's 2 attackers and only 1 defender because this bishop blocks the queen. But upon closer inspection, we see that if he tries to take this, right now I'm up a piece, so he has to take. We have bishop b4 in the end. This is check, and the queen's attacked, so I pick up the queen. And that's something that I sometimes notice, but need to get better at. So I need to just do more tactics puzzles. But basically, the d5 pawn is currently defended by tactical means. And so at the moment he castles, this is no longer check, and so this pawn is hanging. And you can see the main line is castles, and then I'll play e4 after that. So e4 is not necessarily bad by itself, it's just that I played it at the wrong time. So after bishop b5, I played e4, saying this pawn was attacked, I'm going to move it. And he played knight to e5, attacking my knight for the second time. And here I decided to give him the pawn, and right after I castled, I saw queen to d6, holds everything together. A queen is like glue, holding the entire position together. It's actually really brilliant. I just castled and said he can have this pawn. That's okay. I'm going to part with it. I know I have a clear structure and plan where I don't know what he's going to do with this bishop. So my problems are I'm going to be a pawn down, or 2 pawns down potentially. But his problems are going to be, how's he going to deal with this piece? So I'm okay giving away a couple pawns to have an extra piece, essentially. He took, which is great. He took back. And when he takes here, he's attacking the rook and attacking the pawn, so he's going to win the pawn. But he just went back. He went bishop e2. And this was so surprising. I think I actually was like shocked in the video if you go back and watch it. There's no way that could be good. And I thought maybe he saw some tactic or something, but there is no tactic. That's just a good move. And so now, let's look at the position. Who has upsides, who has downsides, right? We both have 2 pieces developed. I would say this knight is considered slightly better than this knight, just because this knight is closer to the king side if you were to castle that way. And this is more in line with my pawn chain. Remember, you want to attack in the direction of your pawn chain, so this knight is assisting with that. Also, again, this knight is blocking in the c-pawn. So this knight is better in that way. He's going to have to move this knight again to get the c pawn moving. The bishops maybe are about equal. But then if we look at the other pieces that aren't developed, this bishop looks really sad. Can't get out anywhere. And if it goes this way, he's going to have to play either b3 or b4, and he's going to have to, play that way. As where this bishop has massive scope, right? It's really good. And so since we noticed that that was an idea he might want to play, I sidestepped that immediately. I said this bishop was poor here, let's make this bishop better. Because I couldn't see a way that this rook would be really improved. This bishop seemed fine for now. I still have all access to the squares that I want to go. I'm not committing myself. And there's no reason to make a kingside pawn move at this time. He now played f3, right? Trying to kind of hack away at my pawn center, which I thought was reasonable. The computer prefers knight a4, saying you shouldn't have put your knight in front of your c pawn. We want to move our c pawn, which is kind of funny. And here I did make a mistake. I played rook to e8. Well, it's an accuracy, but it's pretty bad. I should have taken here. And I went through the reason why taking is not bad. I thought he would take with the bishop. The problem is this pawn is just super weak, and then it's isolated. So we'd have to take with the g pawn in order to keep this pawn from being isolated. And in that position, the advantages are very clear. His king is just way too open. It's gonna take him several moves to get castled. And even then, I have open lines on the queen side. So he's not safe on either side of the board. And with the center opening up, which is what he's doing with f3, he's helping my cause, not his. So he played f4. Another interesting thing where he stutter stepped. He played f3 and then f4. f4 is a great move. It makes this bishop feel terrible. But it's just kind of funny that in the game he played bishop d3, bishop here, bishop back, and then played f3, f4. So he's just wasting a lot of time. a3 even is a waste of time. And I played bishop b7. I'm never going to play g5, ever, ever, ever. Sacking a pawn in front of my king, losing tempos. Just sounds like, like if I said, what's the worst move in the position here? I would, I'm not even joking. I think I would legitimately say this move. There's no move that sacks my queen. If I could sack my queen, I'd try to. I can't. So I'd probably sack a pawn in front of my king. I didn't really bother analyzing g5, and the reason is because it's so difficult for me to find that even if I figure out why it's right, I'm not going to recognize this pattern. Like the computer doesn't even take this pawn. The idea was to play knight d7, which seems like I'm undeveloping and hurting this bishop. Attacking this pawn, and if he tries to hold on to the pawn, what's h4? Okay, then we can start checking the king. I understand. So we're pulling his pawn further away. We're basically making the king side very unsafe, but I wasn't confident he was going to castle that way anyway. I'm wondering what's worse, having no pawns in front of your king or having open lines to your king. Probably open lines. But I stand by bishop b7. And basically my idea was, these pawns are great where they're at, but I'd rather they be one row forward. If these pawns were one row forward, I would be definitely winning the game. Notice that I get an attack here on the knight, and if my pawn's here, I'm really restricting this bishop and really cramping his style. So I'd love that. The problem with playing this move now is it drops this pawn. And you might notice that by tactical means, you're still fine. But I decided to play bishop b7 to reinforce this guy for when I push. That was my plan. Okay, he castled. And I deviated. Oh, no, I played my plan. Fantastic. c5. Very happy with that. He played queen e1. And now I deviated from my plan a little bit. I played a6, which is a waste of time. I was just concerned about him checking me and then I have to move my bishop somewhere. I didn't want to think about that, so I just played a6 and said, hey, it's keeping your bishop and your knight both out of the game. I'm going to play that. There's also a tempo on the rook that he could have tried to ask for, but I think my rook wants to do something anyway. He played queen h4, so he's spending a lot of time getting his queen over here. With my pawns facing towards his king and my bishop's attempting to laser down, and I'm slowly chipping at his center, I'm the one that has the kingside initiative, but I think he was trying to grab it for himself by spending time with this maneuver. Bring his queen over. And so I continued my plan d4. I was really proud of playing d4 because in a lot of games that you guys have seen me play recently, I'll have a plan, I'll have the ideas that I know are thematic for the position, but for some reason I just won't play them. And even here, the insertion of a6 is just not good. It's just a waste of time. So as long as I can know what the plans are and stick to them, I think I'll do a lot better in chess. he really shouldn't take here because two passed center pawns with heavy piece support behind them is game over. He has to give up a piece at some point, so he played knight d1, which, at the risk of sounding a little bit condescending, I was really happy that he found this move. I was really kind of like, that's a really good move. You're defending the weak pawn, and you're letting your c pawn move, which is good. But it kind of shows that his opening experiment, the Chigorin, didn't work out in this way. Obviously, there was other mistakes that were made, but in this case, it didn't work out. And here he played knight d5. I considered bishop e7 briefly, but thought it was kind of like a one-move threat, like, oh, I'm going to move my bishop and attack your queen. The computer says, hey, if you can get time, get some time for yourself. And we're going to kind of skip through the rest of this part, but I liked this move because it attacks the weak pawn. It brings my knight to the center. It offers to trade queens, and if he trades, my rook gets to the center, and if he doesn't, I can still move my queen to squares that I want to go to, and I have more pressure against this pawn here. So I liked knight d5. It's not often the computer doesn't like you putting a knight in the center, so it really thinks that bishop e7 is much better. And here, he played c4. So he finally got to move his c pawn. Yay! Unfortunately, in this case, moving the c pawn hangs a queen. So I took his queen. And we'll fast forward through the rest of this. So he took my knight, that's fine. We're going to fast forward through some of this. It's not very interesting. I was focused mainly on not putting my pieces too far in my opponent's camp, which is obviously a kind of a scared mindset. But it's mostly don't drop a queen, right? Don't drop a queen, don't drop pieces. He dropped another knight over here for no reason. He played rook fd1, and now here, here's a missed win that I played. I played this move, defending my bishop, when the computer recommends rook to b2. You notice that the bishop's hit, and if the bishop moves, it's checkmate. Yeah, and if the bishop goes back this way, let's say, then we have this checkmate as well, queen g2. So I'm invading the 7th rank. That's pretty awful. And the computer line is rook to f1. I assume I take this. Rook e2. Rook f2. So you're just doing everything you can to stop me from checkmating you. It's not a great position to be in. But instead of saying this active plan, I was like, I'm up a queen. There's no reason to push too hard. So I just defended my pieces. I should have gone for the win when I had it, but I didn't. I brought my queen back here. One, it defends the bishop, but two, I'm stopping him from expanding over here. Okay, some more moves were made. I played f6 with the idea of playing g5, which I was very happy about, opening up the king side, forcing it open, and he closed it down. That's why I put my queen here, to coax him into doing this, because now that this is locked up, now I have pieces, now all the action's over here, and I have control over this side of the board. So I've kind of, I threatened to open up this side. He said, no, I'm closing it down. I kind of forced him to make a decision. And it didn't matter what decision he made, it was bad for him. If he opened this side, everything's swinging over and he's getting mated. And if he closes it down, I'm winning on this side, so it's going to be good for me anyway. Okay, he played rook d2, trying to double rooks. I played queen to e7, which hits this pawn and also accesses the e5 square, which is what I thought about. And he played rook cd1, which is a blunder, decidedly, because of queen to e5, which is check, and after the king comes up, I can actually just show you. Let's say he plays some random move. We have check, he comes out. Let's say he goes here. We have check again, he has to go to a light square. After he does, we have bishop c4 check. The rook has to block, we take this. So it doesn't matter which one he goes to. Here, here, here. And then in this position, we play rook captures d3. And he doesn't really want to capture back because checkmate is a little bit unpleasant. And if he goes here, we have check, and we have mate. And there's a lot of other variations you could look at. They all pretty much go the same. We force him to a light square in the back corner, and our bishop gets to develop more with check. And this bishop just falls in pretty much every variation. So that's a great move, right? Playing queen e5, centralizing your queen, defending the bishop, threatening checkmate. Wonderful stuff. Instead, I was running low on the clock. He had 4 minutes and 41 seconds in the final position, and I had 42 seconds. So he was up 4 minutes to me. When I won the queen, back on move 18, I had 2 minutes to his 7. So I was playing all these moves somewhat quickly and didn't want to waste too much time. So here I just forced the simplification of the position with bishop a8, which I thought was a cool move because, I mean, you should probably trade here. Also, my bishop is not going to get taken anytime soon for free. So he took, I took back. I thought he was going to trade again, but he moved his rook. I traded more pieces, forced the trade, and also got 2 passed pawns. In the process. E3, forcing these pawns forward even more, threatening to do these kinds of things. So he moved his bishop back. We traded it more pieces. I definitely should have played that move with check. I looked at it briefly, but I was running out of time. So I played rook c8, attacking this pawn. He stepped forward. I stepped forward. He played c6. And I said, I'm going to make a queen. He has to stop it. And I take this pawn. After he takes, I go here. I would really love for us to trade rooks. So I tried to force a trade, and he accepted. And now I know that I'm just winning by force. And he resigned here, but the final position goes something like, no matter what move he makes, I can go check and mate. Because after this check, his king has to go backwards. And after he goes backwards, he's going to be on the back rank. After he's on the back rank, we'll have this here, and the check later will be checkmate. So let's look at the details. It's D02. I played as black and won with an accuracy of only 66%. 47.1% best move percentage, so not quite 50%, which is what I was looking for. The average difference was quite high because of those missed wins. Fairly okay scores. My rook moves were very low because they were pretty much all blunders or missed wins. This rook definitely should have gone up to B2 at some point. Yeah, and that's the game. So in this game, I'd say the main lessons are in the opening to not panic. And also to pay attention to more tactical resources for defending material. It's kind of odd to think about your bishop going there and then going back, you know, but it definitely would work in this case. So not excluding those options. Also, time management was an issue. I only had 2 minutes to his 7. Overall, I generally kept my head, which I liked. And after winning, don't be afraid to just really win. I liked my strategy. They were missed wins, not blunders, in the sense that they worsened my position. Okay, that's been Turkish Films for Daily Chess Analysis, episode 12. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you stay Turkish. Goodbye.